Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm back in the world of Udon Entertainment taking a look at Street Fighter: Days of the Eclipse. And to do that, of course, we have this special edition oversized hardcover with a nice gold foil cover here with Ken. Very, very great artwork here. I can't wait to talk about this Street Fighter comic. If you missed it, recently I did review Street Fighter Classic Volume 1 Hadoken, also from Udon Entertainment. I'll try to link that video in case you're curious. Want to say a huge thank you to those at Udon Entertainment for sending over this review copy in exchange for this honest review, and as always, I wanted to shout out the channel sponsor, Panel Bound Comics. If you're interested in picking up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to them in the video's description, and if you see anything on that site you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Thank you for considering. Now let's get started with today's comic book review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The comics in this volume had a story written by Capcom, with art from Edwin Huang, Bengus, Panzer, and more. The comics in this volume were published by Udon Entertainment beginning in 2023. As far as what this edition collects, it includes Street Fighter VI issues 0 through 4 and Street Fighter VI Evolution Special. And finally, this is an oversized hardcover edition with glossy print paper stock, what appears to be a glued binding, maybe sewed and glued, a little hard to tell, and a total of 248 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first dedicated look at the front cover for today's collection. I should note that this oversized hardcover edition does not have a slipcase or a dust jacket or anything of that kind, it's just the hardback book itself. Now there is an alternate cover for the standard edition of this release. This is the special gold foil edition. I really like the look of it. It's so just breathtaking in real life. I'm trying to get it on the camera here, but the shiny gold effects of the dragon just really pop. Now on the spine we do have some more detail. We have the Udon Entertainment logo followed by a little picture window there, then Street Fighter VI, a Volume 1, and Days of the Eclipse. The title for the collection of course, and another little picture window and a Capcom logo there at the bottom. I really enjoyed this spine design. It's crisp, it's clear, and it looks pretty good on a shelf. It's also nice to have the volume number within that Street Fighter VI kind of sequence. Really fun stuff. Now on the back of this hardcover, we have some nice little design work in the back of everything. We have the Street Fighter VI logo again, followed by a blurb about the collection, what it includes, the publisher, Capcom, all things like that. The back cover for this book is also really striking. I like that it's predominantly black, but that we do get some cool ornate design work, kind of, watermarked or something in the back. Again, just really a nice facet here that makes the collection just look really good. Now for all you prospective collectors out there, a quick look at this book's binding. I will say after reviewing the Hadoken collection's binding, I was a little nervous about this one, but the integrity of it seems to be a bit stronger than that other Street Fighter Classic volume I reviewed. It does stick together still. I'm a little nervous about it long term, but yeah, so far no complaints. And the collection lays down nicely. And here is a beautiful side-by-side using another edition I received from Udon Entertainment. The other book there is Street Fighter Masters, Volume 1, Fight to Win. It also has that gold foil effect cover. I just think these two editions look really nice next to each other. I'm not sure in which order I'm going to release these, so if you don't have the review for that Street Fighter Master Volume yet, stay tuned because it's forthcoming. If it is already out, I will try to link the video. And now here's a look at both of their spines. I really like this as well. Again, similar design aesthetic. You can tell it's from a different kind of series. Instead of Street Fighter VI, this is Street Fighter Masters. But again, the aesthetic is really comparable here. I really do like that. I have a feeling people that like to collect these oversized hardcovers from Udon for Street Fighter, these probably all look amazing on a bookcase once you get subsequent volumes. And now for this shot here, I have a trade paperback collection of one of Udon Entertainment's Mega Man books. The reason I wanted to do this is just as a size comparison. So that Mega Man trade paperback is a standard size, so you know the height or trim size of a single issue comic book, so you can see just how oversized these hardcovers are in comparison. I'll do this shot from a couple other angles as well, again just to give you a size of scale or scope for these hardcovers. Now I haven't read that Mega Man collection yet, but stay tuned because that is also on the reading list and review list for this channel in the coming weeks and months. I would love to hear though in the comments if you've read Udon Entertainment's Mega Man collection here. Let me know. Let me know if you follow that series. I would be interested in feedback. Okay, and with that comparison finished up, we can dive into the book proper. After some plain end pages there, we do have a nice title page for this Street Fighter 6 collection. We have a breakdown of the issues or contents, the creators, all those things, and then we jump right into the first issue within this collection. Now, to set up a bit of framework for this book, I recently reviewed Street Fighter Classic Volume 1 Hadouken, which I made a reference to earlier in the video. I really did enjoy that book quite a bit. I felt like that was such a great way to jump in on the Street Fighter comics if you knew little to nothing about the mythos of Street Fighter, or if you've never played those games. This book, however, I do believe you will need some prior understanding of these characters. I know I, for one, knew characters like Ken and Chun-Li, who definitely featured in this book, but even my passing awareness or knowledge of them, I still felt a bit out of my depth. Of course, I haven't played all of the Street Fighter games, nor have I read all the comics up until this point. I saw a Volume 1 here, and I assumed it would be fairly good for new readers, and while I think you can enjoy it as I did, I do think it probably benefits to know the characters and their journeys and what kind of got them to this point. This book does follow primarily Ken, and when you follow him, I just really feel like so much has happened since that original Street Fighter Classic series. I'm not even sure if it's in the same continuity, frankly, but we're definitely checking in on him in another stage of life. The story really involves him and his son. Okay, with that caveat out of the way, I still found this story to be really engaging. The through line for all of it was really fun. Ken basically gets caught up with an invitation into this, I don't know if it's a martial arts tournament or some kind of shady underworld kind of tournament, and he initially doesn't want to be involved, but maybe they're involved with terrorist organizations. His son kind of gets kidnapped at one point, it looks like, or needs to be protected, and they try to find Ken, and there's a lot of back and forth here. Again, Ken kind of syncs up with Chun-Li at one point and tries to liberate himself regardless of what the public perception is, and they try to kind of ruin his public perception and basically insinuate that he's up to no good. So there's a lot again focused on Ken, but again, as a parent, he has a more maturity and depth in this collection than I've seen in some others. We don't have the light-hearted, light-spirited fighter we saw in earlier entries, so it is a really interesting changing of the guard kind of moment, or at least kind of just an important point in his life, I would say. I think his son, that character, has a lot of agency in this book as well. In fact, I would consider him one of the main lead characters for this book. Now, like Street Fighter Classic Hadouken, I will say that I am really struck at the character development we do get within these Street Fighter comics. They are so much more layered than I would have expected for a book based on a fighting video game, and I feel like that's really rewarding. And I think for fans of the franchise Street Fighter, if you've played Street Fighter 6, for example, or the other entries, or if you've been following along with the comics, I think there's a lot more meat on the bone here to enjoy than even I did as a casual fan of the franchise. But even coming in as I did, I will give props to what I see here. It's a really fun character-driven story. It's a good father-son story. We do have some good action here and a lot of good tension and conflict. I think that this story, I want to read more of where the Street Fighter 6 story goes. I would like to see how it evolves or what other characters get pulled in. But just with the issues we have here, I think it's still a pretty fun read. I like that we focused more on Ken, but I did miss out on some of the broader roster from the Street Fighter games. I would have loved to see that. We of course have a couple here and there, but it's by no means as broad as what we saw in that Street Fighter Classic series. at least at this point in the storytelling. Now, the oversized hardcover edition, I know I've talked about the build of the book a little bit, but I'm still really struck by how beautiful the artwork looks when it's just blown out to this oversized format. The art style as well, it looks like I'm watching a really well-produced anime. It just happens to be in a physical comic graphic media form versus, visually like animated. I really like that. I like that they look really detailed. I like that the animatics of everything and the paneling, it works. I think that the feeling of movement, motion, flowing of time and scene, it just really is a fluid thing here. I mentioned that with the Hadoken review as well. I just think that the art really draws you in and you just feel the movement so organically. It has this really immersive effect. I'm not really sure that I'm doing it justice, but it really is pretty uncanny. I really appreciate how Street Fighter, so far with the comics I've read, they just really have a good sense of pacing, a good sense of immersion, and just all of the movements, all of the development, and as time passes and the scene progresses, everything just has such an organic feel, and I think it does come down to the artwork and panel layout, and I think that that is an exceptional selling point here. Again, the story details, I will leave some vague just so people can enjoy it for themselves, but essentially it follows Ken, his son, and them getting caught up in this weird organization and tournament or something. I really did like it overall. I think I could have used, like I said, a fuller scope of the storytelling, and maybe I'll see more of that in subsequent Street Fighter 6 comics or in the video game. But with what I've seen here, I still think it's a really fun primer, and it was fun to follow Ken around. I should say after the primary, I think 4 or 5 issues that follow that main story, we are treated to these kind of one-off battle comics. I will say while this was a fun invitation to show more characters, I was less rooted in the storytelling. These comics and battles were really quick and almost feel like an extra in some ways. I should note that fans of Street Fighter in context of the actual fights might enjoy this a bit more than I did. As far as I'm concerned, I preferred the more character-grounded aspects of the storytelling, but it's still fun to have some of these fights at the end. They are really quick, they move even faster, and like I said, they feel a little bit like an extra to me. It was harder to get more grounded in these characters, perhaps because I don't really know them, but still fun to include at the end. After that, toward the back of the book, we do have some extras in the collection, mostly in the form of variant cover art and kind of art galleries here. Some of the imagery here is a bit risque, so that's just something to be mindful of for perhaps younger readers. It's kind of in the context of like fan service, like I'd see in manga or anime. Nothing wildly explicit, but just, again, worth noting here. And that's really going to wrap us up here for Street Fighter 6 Days of the Eclipse. This is the Volume 1 for the Street Fighter 6 comics. Like I said, this is the gold foil edition. There's also a standard cover. Love the oversized format, even if I'm not overly well versed in the overall myth and kind of lore building within the Street Fighter franchise. But let me know what you think. Have you read this? Do you collect these Street Fighter comics? I'd love to hear all about that. And now all that's left to do is to give this book a grade. For a fun and frenetic, Ken-centric adventure, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Street Fighter 6 Days of the Eclipse Volume 1 from Udon Entertainment a C+. I would still consider this an above-average read, particularly for that gorgeous artwork, the sense of movement within these scenes, and again, still some pretty solid character-driven storytelling. I don't feel like this was quite as accessible for new readers, which may have lost me a tad, but still a pretty fun book. I love that gold foil cover, and I think that these characters are all really fun to follow along. I'm really impressed overall by the quality of these Street Fighter comics, and I would consider reading more in the future. Again, let me know what you think, though. I'd be curious to see how many of you read these Street Fighter comics. Again, I'm a little bit newer here, so would love some recommendations. A huge thank you again to those at Udon Entertainment for sending over this review copy in exchange for this honest review, and for all of you for sticking around with me. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave a like, those comments we talked about, and maybe check out another one of my videos on your way out. Thanks everyone, bye.